The Rise of Skywalker is said to be a film by director J.J. Abrams that will bring the Skywalker saga to a close, as well as the sequel trilogy, and a film that's going to make us look at the characters in a different way, such as both the legacy characters and the sequel trilogy-based characters. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars content. So, what's really great about Episode 9 is that we do know that George Lucas is on board for this movie. I don't know if you guys have actually been following this, but George was actually heavily involved in some of the script writing sequences during the rewrites of the movie during the months of November and December, and even played a large role into some of the visuals of the movie and how it all should be done. Now, George, though he's not a director and or a main writer for this movie, he is indeed a creator of the Star Wars franchise, and he was brought back into the actual creative process of Episode 9, which is great. Now, these past couple of weeks or so, we've been learning a whole lot more about this film, and when it all comes down to one of the plans by Disney, Lucasfilm, JJ, and crew, this is where things begin to get very interesting of what happened during the months of November and December. Now, what's really intriguing about all of this is that it's described that during the rewrites of the film, during those months, that this is when JJ and Chris Terrio got George Lucas on board during the writing process, even while they were shooting the film still. It's described that George Lucas wanted to patch some of the pieces that went unexplained in The Last Jedi into Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. One of the scenes that were a part of the rewrites involved a brief segment in which Rey travels back to the world of Ahch-To that would mirror when Luke goes back to Dagobah in Return of the Jedi. Now, it's described that during Rey's return to Ahch-To, she makes her way up the stone steps leading to a hut where the caretakers store many of the Jedi relics. It's said that within here, Rey comes across the mechanical hand of Luke Skywalker. It's described that George Lucas wanted to fix a major flaw by Rian Johnson, that Rian Johnson himself even admitted to it being a mistake, after Luke vanishes where the hand did not fall. It's described that one of the sequences involves Rey holding the mechanical hand of Skywalker, and that it will become a Jedi relic and artifact that Rey collects, and that this is yet another moment in which Luke's Force Ghost voice reaches out to Rey to guide her on the right path throughout her journey. The Ahch-To sequence is described to be brief and was used for Abrams to share his vision of Ahch-To in the film, where George Lucas wrote the idea of Luke's mechanical hand actually falling behind. So let's go over a couple of parts about this of George Lucas fixing this mistake by Rian Johnson. Now, you guys may recall that both Mark Hamill and Rian Johnson pointed this major flaw, I believe it was in January of 2018, about a month or so after The Last Jedi released, is when Rian Johnson admitted that it was a mistake on his part. It was a mistake that they didn't even realize until they were further into post-production, where I guess it was pretty much at that point irreversible and they were way too close to its release, perhaps. But to me, that was a major flaw, and just in my point of view, where George Lucas is actually filling in that flaw of introducing the mechanical hand of Luke Skywalker. Now, what's great about the mechanical hand not falling down to the boulder is it left a lot of fans, in a lot of conversations and discussions that maybe this means that Skywalker teleported. Could this mean that Luke Skywalker is still alive because the mechanical hand did not fall behind? Because after all, when you become a Force Ghost, anything artificial is left behind, such as the cloak, the clothing itself, and a mechanical hand would absolutely be yet another example. We've seen another example of metallic objects being left behind, such as when Obi-Wan Kenobi sacrificed himself in A New Hope. We do indeed see his lightsaber fall down to the ground. So Luke's mechanical hand, vanishing along with himself, it didn't really make any sense. It was not logical. And that's exactly what George Lucas wanted to patch in this movie to make it make a lot more sense in Episode 9. So, like I say, George Lucas being involved with this film, he knows everything. I mean, he is the man who came up with the idea of Force Ghosts, right? Right in A New Hope is when the concept of Force Ghosts was introduced, where we do hear Obi-Wan Kenobi's voice reaching out to Luke saying, "Run, Luke, run." That was literally the first little hint about Force Ghosts in the entire Skywalker saga. So what I like about this is that this is George Lucas really kind of retconning, or should I say, just fixing certain elements of The Last Jedi and implementing all of that into The Rise of Skywalker in order to really make things a whole lot more, sense in the Skywalker saga and in the sequel trilogy. Now, what do I think about this? Well, I think that this is a very interesting idea. It's going to be a very interesting relic to see Darth Vader's mechanical hand being left behind within this large hut where the caretakers actually kept a lot of the relics. I don't know if you guys read The Last Jedi novelization, but at the very end of the book, by the way, everything in that novelization is more interesting than the movie itself in my point of view. But in that book, at the very end, it does mention that the caretakers collect Luke's boots, his cloak, everything that belonged to Luke Skywalker, but there was no mention of his mechanical hand, as far as I recall in the novelization, so that was yet another mistake in the book itself. But within that, we do learn that Luke's Jedi weapon was left behind in that hut on Ahch-To. So it's very possible that this scene is going to set up where Rey also collects the green iconic lightsaber from Return of the Jedi. So anyways guys, drop a comment below, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.